Okay, guys, how's everybody doing this week? We got another pregame show, Nebraska versus Houston Christian. And let me tell you, I am predicting a absolute barn burner. I'm saying Nebraska is going to make a statement this week. And it has something to do with something I heard Matt Rhule say. I can't remember, I think it was the press conference last week, after the game, where he basically said that he wants teams to not want to come back to Nebraska. He wants to beat teams that are visiting Nebraska so bad that they don't want to come back. And Houston Christian is probably the perfect team for Nebraska to make that statement. Nebraska is going into this week 32nd in the country, according to CBS Sports. And they are receiving votes in both major polls right now, the coaches poll and the um, AP Top 25. They are receiving votes in both of those polls, which tells me Nebraska's on the cusp of breaking into the top 25. You know, that's coming, guys. So just kind of looking at this, I expect Nebraska against a team like Houston Christian, a bottom tier. Houston Christian is a bottom tier FCS team. Nebraska is 32nd in the country in the FBS, according to CBS Sports. That tells me Nebraska is a top tier team this year in the FBS. And there is a power gap between the FCS and the FBS, especially between a top tier FBS school and a bottom tier FCS school. I mean, Houston Christian finished what, last in the Southland Conference last year? So again, I expect every time Nebraska touches the football, I expect them to score. Now, there's a chance Houston Christian might be able to squeak in a field goal early on in the game. I doubt it, but you never know. If they're going to do that. I'm predicting for this game, Nebraska to win 84-0. Like I said, I expect Nebraska every time they touch that football to score. And to be honest, 84-0 against a team like Houston Christian is, I mean, not unreasonable. That's literally what, an average of 3 touchdowns a quarter. Against a team like Houston Christian, I expect Nebraska's score to look more like a basketball score than a football score. I'm not predicting Nebraska having to do a whole lot of kicking in general. They're going to have to kick off once at least, and they're going to have to, kick the ball back to the team after they score. But I don't see Houston Christian being able to put up much of a fight against a team like Nebraska. Their players are going to be smaller. They're not going to be used to the stadium noise that Memorial Stadium can produce when Husker fans are active within the stands, and Nebraska is doing really well. This game needs to be that statement piece. This game needs to be that game where when we face Michigan next week, Michigan's going, I don't know. That's a pretty good Nebraska team. I don't think I want them questioning, whether or not they're going to be able to beat Nebraska. And, Michigan's going to be a much tougher game. But putting up a score like 84-0 against Houston Christian is going to make Michigan start questioning things. We beat Akron. What was it? What was last week's score? I forgot here. I got it in here somewhere. Yeah, 68-0 against Akron. 84 to the Akron's a better team than Houston Christian. Just be on the fact that Akron is an FBS school, Houston Christian is a FCS school. And there's a gap between the FBS and the FCS as far as power, durability, as far as just being able to, keep up. FCS schools have a hard time keeping up with FBS schools, with a few exceptions. Some of the top tier, FCS schools could probably probably do it, but with many of the lower rung FBS schools, but you know, again, this is Houston Christian. They are, from everything I can find on them, they are awful. They are a bottom tier FCS school that, I'm sorry, I don't think they can keep up with Nebraska. I don't, I'm not dogging Houston Christian. Um, I'm just being realistic with it. Like, I don't see Houston Christian being able to come to Nebraska, come into Memorial Stadium, deal with the noise, deal with a team that's bigger than them, stronger than them, has higher endurance than them. They're not ready for a team like Nebraska. It's going to be a barn burner. It's going to be a barn burner, and Houston Christian, unfortunately, they're going to get burned. And they're going to get burned big time. And I'm not the only person out there saying this. I expect Nebraska to just come out and dominate from start to finish. Like I said, there's a small chance that, Houston Christian might get lucky with a trick play or something like that and get in position for a field goal. I would be incredibly surprised if Houston Christian got a touchdown. I would be shocked. Um, but, a field goal, I wouldn't be surprised, but it would be just the one. It'd be, haha, you guys fooled us. Okay, cool, whatever. You got your field goal. Now watch this, And I mean, that's how I honestly believe this game is going to go. It's going to be a barn burner. Nebraska's going to come out. They're going to dominate. They're going to work through their issues. And I don't see Matt Rhule letting off the gas. I don't see the players letting off the gas. I don't see any of the coaching staff letting off the gas against a team like Houston Christian. Houston Christian, they're just, they're going to have to, do what they can. But again, I see Nebraska winning 84-0. Especially after the performance against Akron. It's a good opportunity for Nebraska to clean up some of those minor issues they still have, like some penalties and stuff like that. It's an opportunity for them to clean up some of that. Let's see. Also an opportunity for them to. I got some notes here. I'm looking at the things I put out there. I do. There's probably going to be a lot of short fields and turnovers. Um, Special teams could definitely put some pressure on them. Nebraska could add a touchdown via punt return or blocked kick. You know, and I definitely see us sprinkling in our second, third, maybe even fourth string players against Houston's, Houston's, you know, starters and whatnot. I see us sprinkling in second and third stringers, maybe even fourth stringers. We'll get to see some of the depth talent, which I think is going to be very important, especially for rankings purposes. Um, even our second and third stringers, even our fourth stringers, are bigger, faster, and stronger than anything Houston Christian has. Let's see. What other notes do I have here? Definitely, you could see the defense basically suffocate Houston Christian's offense. Um, I think that's the thing. We got some. That's another thing I have on here. Nebraska has some amazing explosive players on offense and some very dominant players on defense. Um, I don't see Archie Wilson getting much time to play. I doubt he even gets one punch down. I mean, if he does, it'll be early in the game. But yeah, I just don't see, you know, I know I had something in here. I'm looking through my notes here. There's something in here that I had of some things that we need to clean up, and I can't find it, and that's frustrating. Um, and the point, and here's the thing: the point of this game is, and why I think it's going to be such a high scoring game for Nebraska and a low scoring game for Houston Christian, possibly even a no scoring game for Houston Christian. In fact, I'm really leaning in that direction. Is we need that statement game. We need to put the rest of the FBS on notice, the rest of the teams on our schedule on notice, and we need to say, and we need this type of scoring game because we can come out and say we could have named our number. We could have named our score, whatever this final score ends up being. And like I said, I can see Nebraska putting up 84 points. I can see them putting up 12 touchdowns, you know, or more for that matter. I mean, it's one of those things where we might even score some safeties, followed up by touchdowns. We might, anything can happen. Anything can happen. But even if Houston Christian has a good day, Houston Christian is nowhere close to Nebraska on its best day when Nebraska is having its worst day. Houston Christian on their best day is nowhere close to Nebraska on its worst day. Um, as far as talent, capability, execution, that sort of thing. Like I said, I look to see, us cleaning up stuff when it comes to ball handling. I see us cleaning up stuff when it comes to, know, penalties. I see us having an opportunity to really just go out there and just squash Houston Christian. And we should, by all rights, be able to just squash them. That's why I'm predicting a dominant 84-0 win for Nebraska. And if we do that, I'll be moving my prediction on Michigan from a loss to a 50-50. Because I don't think Michigan's doing that great this year either. I know they're down in the rankings. They spots they drop. Oh, CBS has them at 26, down 7. Because Michigan's next game, and it's going to be a challenge. They're 23rd, down 8 in the AP top 25, and in the coaches poll they are 22nd, down 9 positions and whatnot. Michigan's currently 1-1. They lost to Oklahoma last week. Which Oklahoma, I mean, yeah, Oklahoma's 16th in the country. They're 2-0. They're looking pretty decent. I hate to say that about the Sooners, so that's still Sooner die than be a Sooner. But a little bit of my age show there. I grew up in that era of I'd sooner die than be a Sooner. Because when I was growing up, Oklahoma was our rival back in the 90s and early 2000s. So back in the days of the Big 12 and whatnot. Um, like I said, Nebraska is going to dominate this game. And, we have that big of a score tomorrow. I can tell you right now, Michigan's going to be going, what are we going to do about Nebraska? And, they're going, what are we going to do about Nebraska? And questioning questioning their strategy against Nebraska. You know, especially if Nebraska pulls into the top 25 after this game, which I could see us coming in around 25th, because we're going to have a ton of momentum. If we're not in the top 25, we're going to be just outside of it. But I guarantee if we beat Michigan, we'll be in the top 25, for sure. Um, we're looking at a 4-0 start right now. Michigan, if we score the way I think we're perform the way we're going to perform. I think we're going to perform tomorrow. Actually, I didn't write that down. I didn't write down our win on this little card here. There we go. Like I say, Houston Christian. If we beat them, we're going into the Michigan. Going into facing Michigan at home. Meaning we'll be at home. So in Memorial Stadium with a 4-4 start. Our 4-0 start. I don't know why I said 4-4. 4-0. 4-0 start. We're gonna have a ton of momentum along. At that point. Michigan's next game is Central Michigan, so they'll probably beat Central Michigan. Central Michigan isn't that good, which means they'll be a 2-1 team and we'll be a 4-0 team. Michigan's going to be our first real challenge of the season. And like I said, Nebraska's looking good. Nebraska's looking strong. Yeah, we got some issues. We got issues every year. I'm not drinking the Kool-Aid yet, but we beat Houston Christian and then managed to, beat Michigan, or at least keep it very, very tight. Honestly, I think that about that time will be about the time to start drinking the Kool-Aid. I think that's when it's going to be time to drink the Kool-Aid. After that, we got Michigan State. I got that as a win. I got Maryland as a win. If we manage to beat Michigan, that puts us at, let's see here, 4-0, 5-0, 6-0 if we win against Michigan State as well, 7-0 if we beat Maryland as well. Then we're going 7-0 into Minnesota. And I'm not sure what Minnesota's doing. I have it as a 50-50 right now. I might be changing that to a win if we go into Minnesota 7-0. I'll be changing that to a win. I got us beating Northwestern. I got us beating USC. UCLA, I have it as a 50-50. But if at that point we're still undefeated, that might be leaning towards UCLA being a win. Then we got Penn State. Penn State's supposed to be pretty good this year. I'm not sure what they're doing in the rankings. Let me see here. I think they're pretty high up there. At least they were. Oh, yeah, they're number 2 in the country. Penn State, I'll probably still keep that as a 50-50. And then we got Iowa, which I have as a win. We got some good teams on the schedule, but we also have, a pretty good team this year as well. There's a chance that we could be a college playoff contender. Finn, be quiet. But anyways, I'm going to hop off of here. I got some other stuff I got to do today. I'm going to get this posted later on this afternoon, possibly evening. Y'all have a good one. And like I said, go Big Red. God bless everyone. And we'll be back after the game for a breakdown video probably sometime tomorrow evening. Like I said, go Big Red and look for a barn burner tomorrow. Look for a barn burner.